Trish from Cotton Candy Quilts in lovely scenic Gaston, Indiana, and I am here with Harmony Block 6. This is our applique block, and it's a little bit oversized, so you notice there's a little extra around the outside. When you're done, don't trim it. You're going to keep it this size to put it into your Lone Star. If you are doing Harmony with us, you already know that you have all of these pieces pre-cut and pre-fused for you. So you're just cutting out the background, and that is it. And I'm going to give you some tips on laying out and a little lesson in machine applique. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get to it. So if you're doing this along with Cotton Candy Quilts, you know you already have your pre-cut lasers, and they come in this little package, and all the little pieces are there, but when you open it up, they're all going to be joined a little bit. I have this on top of my 16.5-inch backing fabric, the background to the flowers, and you can see that these two are joined together. You just want to go in and clip with your little tiny sharp scissors anywhere there's a join. So there, I've taken my first big flower out. And I'll go ahead and clip this one too. And then this little piece is just throwaway. So we're just going to get rid of that. There's our two flowers from that piece, and this is throwaway. So let me clip all these down, and then we'll talk about how to get the paper off the back and then how to lay it out on the background fabric. Well, I have my pieces all cut out, so let's get started with this. This is really fun, actually. Sometimes what you don't want to do when you're taking off the paper backing is pick from the edge. When you pick from the edge, you're going to get little strays. Sometimes you can fold it and then it'll come loose, but this didn't. That happens sometimes. So what I'm going to do, this is my handy dandy super technical tool. It is a straight pin, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to score the paper, and then I'm going to bend the paper, and look at that, it just comes right off. Isn't that cool? And no raggedy edges. That's a tip you can keep with you forever and ever, anytime you do applique. The other thing that I wanted to tell you is I realized when I was cutting the side stems out that there's little stems in between. Those little stems are throwaway. You want the bigger pieces as your stem. Alrighty, I am ready to arrange the pieces for appliques and press them down. If you notice when you took off the paper, there is a nice, barely visible sheen to the back of your pieces. That is the glue that's going to hold the pieces down while you applique. So, there is information in her book about taking the pieces, the pattern pieces out and tracing them, and then you can lay the pattern down, and then your background fabric, and then the pieces, so that you can get them exactly right. Well, I'm going to tell you that I am not that accurate. I would prefer to just eyeball this when I lay it down by using the picture. Now, I would like all of them to pretty much match, so what I'm doing, if you let me lift up right here, you can see that I've already pressed this one down, and I'm laying the next one on top. So I did the first one freehand, and then I lay the next piece on top, and then I use that as a pattern. And then all of them will look pretty much the same. So I do want to tell you that when you lay this first piece down, you could line it up with the corner, and you want to go all the way down to the edge. If not, when you sew, your flower will be floating out there in space somewhere. So I want my flower grounded, so I'm going to make it so that when I sew this piece into my quilt, that this stem is going to go clear to the bottom. And when you look at the picture of her quilt, you'll see that it's done the same way. So I'm going to start by laying that piece down, and I lay a ruler down corner to corner like this to make sure that first piece is straight corner to corner, because these will be set on point. And the next pieces that I would want to pick up are the ones that go under, and this is one of the leaves at the top because they go under the stem. And then I would take the whole thing with the sheet underneath, with the one that I did before still underneath, over to the iron, and I would press that piece down first. And then I would start stacking them up, and the next thing that you would want to put on is this piece, the flower, and you want to press it down before you move on to the centers. Now, one thing I want to tell you about this, hey look, I have wrinkles. That never happens, does it? One thing I want to tell you about this is when you're getting ready to press, you want to take your iron straight down, hold for however long the information says inside your laser cut applique, lift up, lay down, lift up, lay down. Do not scoot your iron because you will scoot your pieces. So I'm going to get these all ready to go. I am excited because this is my favorite part of the whole thing. So I'm going to get these pressed down, and then I'll be right back here, and I'll give you a couple of tips on doing the actual applique. We'll be doing machine applique. You can choose any kind of applique you want. I'm going to be doing a blanket stitch around the edge in sort of matching colors. You could also do straight stitch if you're not going to wash it very much, because these are fused, and that's by machine. Or you could do hand applique. Don't needle turn it though, because your pieces will get too little. And you could also do satin stitch if you really like that. So I'm just going to show you how to do my favorite one, and then you can choose and do your favorite one. And let's get going with this. Look, you can tell my little leaf isn't in the right place. Let's stick it back down there where it goes. A couple of things that I wanted to show you before we go to start doing the applique. The first thing is right here at the bottom, see where it kind of overlaps just a little bit? That's so that we can sew it right into the seam. And watch out for these edges, this purple flower and this purple flower. You don't want to get it so close to the edge that you're going to catch it into your seam. So make sure there's a good 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch from the edge there. So you may have to scrunch over a little bit. This extra up here, you won't have that much extra when you're done because you're going to trim the whole quilt. So don't worry about it being too far down onto the block, because this will trim out after we sew it in. And it also gives a little bit of area for some custom quilting when you're finished. Here's one more little tip about placing your appliques. If you look right here, you can see that the stems are underneath the main stem for the flower. When I put this down, I did fusing down here at the bottom, And I did fusing up here at the top and fused the leaves underneath the stem, but I left this open so that I could tuck in these stems. You can do the same thing with the one leaf on either side that tucks in. You can also, especially on those leaves, place everything and then warm it up, lift the edge of the stem and slide the leaf under and then fuse back again. That works just as well. I have a lot of pretty threads here. You can probably tell that these threads are from different makers. I have, probably Metler and some Sulky and my mainstay, which is Aurifil. But I just want it to match the color. I just want it to match the color. So let me place these around on the different elements, and you can tell that it goes pretty well. I'm not a purist as far as using the same threads for each thing. I just want it to match. So gather up some threads and here we go. Well, this is kind of tricky, but we're going to give it a try. So you can see that I've done this flower, and I'm going to show you how to get it to look so neat and tidy. The first thing you want to do is put it on a blanket stitch, or a button, not a buttonhole, but a blanket stitch, or an applique stitch, and you'll need to check your directions to see how to do that on your particular machine. And then you can probably tell this is not the machine that I usually sew at. This is my Husqvarna, which I really enjoy for doing applique because it does a really nice stitch. And the first thing I want to do is to bring my bottom thread up, and I have no idea how much you can see here, but the whole idea is that the needle goes into the fabric on the right side of the applique. So the needle isn't actually going into the applique when it's on the right hand side. So I'm going to needle down and needle back up again, and I'm going to pull that bottom thread up. If not, I end up with a little rat's nest on the back, and it can be kind of ugly. And my needle has gone to the left because I just finished. So let me go to the left. And your settings are pretty personal. I have mine set on 3 length and 3 width, but that's my personal preference. And if you'd rather have yours shorter or longer or closer, that's absolutely fine. There's no set way to do it. So now I have my needle down, and I'm going to do a fixed stitch. And then I'm going to let it sew. This is something where you do not want to be speeding along. You want to go slow, and you want to make sure that your needle, if you look at my foot, my needle is exactly perpendicular to the piece that I'm doing. So it's going to take a couple of stitches, and then it's going to go over. And my needle, when it's on the right hand side, is always right beside the fabric, always right beside. Now this is a nice slow and gentle curve here on this little purple flower, and most of your stuff is a little very, very slow, so I am moving it as I go along. But if I need to move very much, then I'm going to stop the machine with the needle on the right and make the adjustment. And I do leave my needle down so that when I adjust, use it in the needle down position, so that when I adjust, I'm not pulling the thread over. Now the curve is getting a little more tight, so I take a stitch, adjust, take a stitch, adjust, oops, you got a little wiggle there, take a stitch, and every time I get to the outside, with the needle on the right hand side, I stop and adjust my fabric so that the thread is exactly just overlapping the edge, but there's not stitching way out here because I want it right exact. And I don't want my stitches to, I guess I'd call it slant either, because if you keep going straight when you ought to be turning, then the stitches look pretty weird. So here we're going straight and narrow again, so I can straighten up a little bit, go a little faster. And then for the inside curve, I'm doing the same thing. I am going to leave my purple thread in. This purple is only for the darker purple flowers. It's more of a blue purple instead of a red purple. And to save time in changing the thread, I am going to do all of those flowers first on all 4 blocks before I go back the other way and choose another color. And you're watching as I'm adjusting there, because I want that needle to just fall on the outside of the fabric, the applique fabric. I think applique is like super duper relaxing. It's a fun afternoon just guiding the fabric through and not working to get points right. You're just scooting along. I am almost finished with this flower. Here's the threads from where I started. I'm going to pull those out of the way. And then I'm going to sew back to where I started. I've got those threads so that I can see them, so that I know where I'm supposed to stop. And then I'm going to do another fixed stitch, or a stitch in place, or a lock stitch, whatever you call it. It's just fine. And then I'm going to cut all threads even with the fabric. Since I've done a lock stitch, there's no reason to pull them through. Okay, so here we are with our finished block, and I wanted to get in real close so that you could see that the stitches lay right along the edge, and come in. This makes your applique look absolutely perfect. It takes a little practice, but you get better as you go along. Take frequent breaks, because sometimes you get kind of, I want to call it road blind. you know, where you forget to pay attention to what you're doing. And I also wanted to show you about color. So let me go backwards here so that you can see. Backwards is always forwards first, right? So, I have chosen teal for these and purple, a darker red purple for here. But these pieces especially, this one and the leaves that are multicolored, you could choose all kinds of colors if you wanted to. You could pick any color out of there. Maybe you would want the center hot pink. That would be fun for thread. This is your own creation. There is no right or wrong, and you can do it however you want. I'm going to show you one more thing here. This is the back of the block, and it's kind of fun. Don't you think it's kind of fun? Seeing all those colors of thread, it's just so pretty. But something else you want to pay attention to is that if you turn the block over when you're finished, if you have missed something, like maybe I didn't do this leaf, it would be glaringly obvious. So flip your work over when you're done and double check that.